Wonderful. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the October Dependency-Track community meeting. Let's go to the next slide for some logistics. The meeting will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube in a couple days. So thank you, Mark, for doing a lot of work on the YouTube side. These slides will be published in the Dependency-Track community repo. And feel free to use the Zoom Q&A feature for any specific questions so we can mark things as answered, but we'll be monitoring both the Q&A and the chat section for any questions that anyone will have. And there will be an open Q&A section towards the end for any questions, but if we do have extra time, we can answer some questions in between each section. Great. For the agenda, we'll be starting off with talking about version 4.12 and demoing the features in 4.12. And then Nicholas will be talking about taking a peek at version 4.13. And then after that, since it's now October, it's the season of Hacktoberfest. So I'll be talking about Hacktoberfest and encouraging new contributions. And then lastly, we'll be going through the Q&A. Great. So let's get started. Nicholas?
Thanks so much, Caroline. Yeah, we just released version 4.12 yesterday, so it's kind of hot off the press. Just looking at a few highlights from our perspective, which were really cool to see. We had 29 contributors across both the repositories, both API server and front end, of which 20 were new, which is the best we ever had, I think. And it's kind of amazing. This release has over 50 enhancements and over 20 bug fixes. And this does not take into account the fixes that we backported to version 4.11 already. And we released 7 bug fix releases for version 4.11. So a majority have already been backported at this point. Then for high-level highlights of this release, which you can also find in the changelogs, which are linked to the right side here. You can also use a QR code scanner to access the changelogs. One of the main things is a wide or a multitude of tag-related features, which includes tag management. There's a new global policy audit view or global policy violation audit view, similar to the global vulnerability audit view that we released in the last, in 4.11. There's now authorization for badges. And we modernized the tech stack that Dependency-Track is running on. Again, this is very high level. There's a lot more in this release, and I would much encourage you to look at the changelog to see all the changes. There have also been multiple deprecations in the API, for example. So please also check the upgrade notes in the changelog before you do the upgrade, if anything of those things affect you. I will demo the global policy violation view and the authorization for badges today. We demoed the tag-related features already in previous community meetings. I will come back to that later. But I will still show you with screenshots how those look like. Just for the full demos, we would like to refer to earlier community meetings. In case you wonder what the badges are, these are just SVG badges that you can embed into your GitHub README or your wiki to show how many vulnerabilities or policy violations a given project has, just in case you were not aware of this. Again, as I mentioned, just stepping quickly over the changes that were tag related in this release, you now have autocomplete for input fields that accept tags. For example, in this case, this is the project creation or edit view. And here I just typed in gin and I got origin, internal, and origin OSS back. And it will show up to 6 recommendations for you to choose from. The tag management view is completely new. So on the left navigation, there's now a new section, tags. And it will show a table with all the tags in your system, including how many projects it's assigned to, how many policies, and how many alerts. So how many notification rules. And you may notice there's a trash bin icon towards the top right with with which you can delete tags from your system. There are a few caveats here. You need to have permission to delete tags. It's a new permission. And the permission is not automatically assigned to anyone if you are upgrading from 4.11. So if you want to delete tags, you need to first assign that permission. It's called tag management. You need to first assign that permission to a team or to a user for them to be able to do it. Also, the user who is supposed to delete tags, when the tag is assigned to a project, the user needs to have access to that project, and they need to have the portfolio management permission. That is because unassigning a project is like modifying that project. If you don't have access to it, you shouldn't be able to do it, right? The same is true for policies and for alerts. If you don't have access to any of these things, you cannot delete this tag. So you may also see that there's the number of projects in this case. These are hyperlinks. And if you click on one of them, you will see the listing of all the projects linked to that tag. And again, there's an icon to the top right, which is a minus in this case, which allows you to unassign that tag from one or more projects. Then we also added selective BOM validation with tags. So one problem we had is in version 4.11, we introduced BOM validation, and we noticed that many tools currently generate invalid BOMs or invalid to the cyclone-DX schema, according to the cyclone-DX schema. So people had to globally disable BOM validation, which was like kind of against the point we wanted to make. So in this case, in this release, we give you an escape latch. You can now configure validation to be disabled for specific projects with specific tags. And those can be one or more tags. If at least one of them matches against your project, it will either be excluded or included from BOM validation. So you don't have to make a global decision anymore. Also, you can now like limit alerts to tags. So previously you could only limit to projects and then also like children of those projects. Now you can also limit to, again, like projects assigned to tags. And that kind of makes the whole management a little bit simpler, because assigning tags to projects is easier than like adding projects manually to notification rules. Yeah, so just highlighting where the location of that input field is. And again, this will also have autocomplete for all the existing tags you have in the system. And as I mentioned before, like we demoed all of this in like Access in the previous community meetings. If you're interested in seeing this in a live motion, please have a watch at those. Otherwise, if we have like time later on, I'm more than happy to demo it again if there is desire. Yeah, but otherwise I would like to demo new things that have been coming to version 4.12 since our last community meeting. So let me just switch my screen here. I have prepared a few things. Just rearranging windows here. Give me a second. Okay. So this is version 4.12 as released yesterday or as built yesterday. One thing you may notice here is we now display the database product and the database version, in case you ever wondered like what kind of version of the database I'm actually running, or you are running in production. You can now check it in the about dialog as well. The first thing I would like to demo is a very recent contribution actually, and it's for portfolio access control. So how portfolio access control currently works is let me just show it here. In the settings under access management and then portfolio access control, you have to explicitly enable this. And this feature is used to limit the projects a user or a team has access to. And the way this has historically worked is, for example, you pick out the portfolio managers team, and then you have to select like all the projects you want that team to have access to. For example, I can here select Apache Airflow, and this is assigned here. So when I now log in as someone with that team or as a member of that team, I can only access the Airflow project. It's a bit cumbersome to do it this way. So there's now a kind of better-ish way to do it. Now, when I create a new project, let's call it demo and the version 123, I select classify here. I can now also select a team. I hope it's visible like the drop-down I have here. It's showing me administrators, automation, badge viewers, and portfolio managers. So all the team in the instance. And this is happening because I'm currently logged in as administrator. So I can see all the teams. I don't even have to be a member of them. If you are a normal user, you can only select teams here which you are a member of. So someone from the portfolio managers team could only select portfolio managers here. And that kind of avoids the cumbersome workflow of creating the project, then asking the admin in the administration panel to assign that project to you. Yeah, so let's select portfolio managers here. One moment. Right, so one thing is that you may have noticed, sorry, if I go back to the project creation dialog here, you may notice that the team selector here is mandatory. And that's because the portfolio access control feature is enabled. So the front end really wants you to assign a team right at the beginning. One thing to note here is that the API does not enforce this, like it does not make the team required. That's for backward compatibility reasons, because we previously did not require this to be mandatory. Also, here you can only select one team at the moment. The API allows you to select multiple teams, and you can specify the teams via UUID or via their name. So if you have any kind of automation around this, that should make the assignment easier as well. Going back here. Another new addition that was also a contribution is the concept of latest versions in projects. We had a discussion about this for a while, actually, because multiple use cases kind of require you to know what the latest project version is. The big challenge is there's no, like Dependency-Track does not enforce a versioning scheme, right? You could use branch names, you could use semantic versioning, you could use date time formats, you can use like git commit hashes, and there's no way for Dependency-Track to tell which version of all those is the latest. So one approach we took now is we allow you to specify explicitly which version is the latest according to your rules or requirements. And you may have seen this here. There's now a new toggle where you can just set, hey, this is the latest version. It's kind of, if you have used GitHub before, GitHub releases, the principle is kind of similar. So if I mark this as latest version, you will also see there's a latest version indicator here. And when you then, for example, add a new version via the UI or via a clone request in the REST API, there's also a new option to make that clone or that new version the new latest version. So adding 3 to 1 here, creating the new version, reloading, and going here. So the new version is now the latest. So what this is useful for is at the moment in this release, you can, in policy management, you can now limit your policies to only the latest version of a project. So if for whatever reason you think older versions should not raise any policy violations for specific policies, you can now do it here. The only caveat to all of this is you need to explicitly set the latest version flag. We don't automatically do this for you. We could possibly do it in the future if we like figure out how to smartly determine the latest version. But at the moment you have to do it manually. Just to, you should be aware of that if you use this feature. Yeah, all right. And this feature will also be useful for more things that I will mention when we come to version 4.13, to the upcoming version. I think that was this year. No, sorry. An additional thing, which is cool. You can also like fetch the latest version of a project via API. For example, if you use it in your CI/CD workflow, you want to clone the latest version when you upload a new SBOM. There's a new endpoint here for in the project section. Project. So many endpoints. Here. So there's now a new get endpoint. Sorry. a new get endpoint where you can query the latest version of a specific project name. I will not demo that here, just know the endpoint is there. It's not exposed to anything in the UI, but if you are doing like scripting or integrations, then this might be of use for you. And also, like in the project view, there's now a new column for latest. So you can like immediately see which version of the project is the latest version. Yeah, so this is all for this feature. And then for the policy violation audit that I mentioned before, just to like reiterate what we shipped before, is the vulnerability audit view, which is this one, which allows you to view all the vulnerabilities across your entire portfolio. And if you have policy portfolio access control enabled and you limit access to projects, you would only see vulnerabilities for those projects that you have access to here. But this is like the alternative to going into every single project one by one and then selecting the audit vulnerabilities tab. This is like a global view again. And now in version 4.12, we have the same thing for policy violations, where you can filter by various criteria. You have like a large-ish table with a multitude of columns to select from. In this case, you can see I have various license policy violations for an Airflow project, because I have like non-permissive licenses in an open source software here. You can also see the license that violated my policy is also listed here. So yeah, if you work a lot with policy violations, this view might be of big help for you. Just to show like how it basically works, you may see that all of my violation states are currently info. So if I select warn, this entire thing would be empty. So yeah, like lots of filters you can choose from. Yeah, one like similar to the vulnerability audit view, this is entirely read-only for the moment. So you cannot suppress or unsuppress or set like violation states here. You still have to go onto the respective project to do that. Then for jumping around a bit, then for the batch authorization that I mentioned earlier, just to show you how it previously worked, in the settings under general in the general configuration, you had this toggle here which says enable authenticated as unauthenticated SVG batch access. And the way this worked is via pretty much REST endpoints. Let me just go to the batch REST endpoint for policy violations, for example. I need a valid project UUID, for example, this one. So at the moment, this feature is disabled, right? So unauthenticated batch access is disabled. I should not be able to see a batch here. That's the case. It says unauthorized. If I now go back here, enable the batch access and retry, I'm getting an SVG image back. And this just shows like all the policy violations that I have, like grouped by violation state, info, warning, and fail. And we have the same batch also for vulnerabilities. And of course, exposing this feature like this is kind of a vulnerability in itself, because everyone who knows that your dependency track instance has this feature enabled can just provide a project name and a version and then iterate over all of your projects essentially to see how many vulnerabilities they have. You may see in this case, I provided a UUID, which is hard to guess, but you can also in another endpoint just provide a name and a version. So this has historically been problematic, I would say. And the whole intention for this feature is to just embed this into a README, right? So you have a nice fancy image in your README that shows you your vulnerabilities. So what we did now is, again, contribution. So a lot of thanks to the contributor here. You could now disable this feature again to make it authenticated, the batch access. And instead, when you create a new dependency track instance now with version 4.12, you get this batch viewers team. And this batch viewers team has only one permission. It's called view badges. If you are upgrading from an earlier version, you will not have this team by default. And no team that you have will have the view badges permission. So if you want to use this, you have to create your own team and assign that permission yourself. This is just to make you aware that this is an intentional thing you should be able to enable if you want it. Yeah, but with this badge viewer permission now, I can check the API key. And for only this specific endpoint, for the badge endpoints, you can provide an API key via URL parameter, right? Because you cannot set headers and links that you embed in READMEs. So you need a URL parameter to make this whole thing work. And again, I'm emphasizing this is only for this specific endpoint. No other endpoint accepts API keys via URL parameter. I'm doing this here. I'm setting the API key parameter and go back to the badge endpoint. Now, because I have portfolio access control enabled and my badge viewer team does not have explicit access to the project that I'm trying to look at, I should still get a forbidden. And you can see in the request here, the API key is provided. Now, this is all to say, if you use this feature, you need to really make sure that the team you assign this permission to and the API key that you use does not have any other permissions other than view badges, right? Because otherwise your API key would be leaked in potentially public places, and whoever gets access to that could do other stuff with it. But now, just for demonstration purposes, let's give the badge viewer access to the Airflow projects. And then I should get a badge back, right? So this API key, or the team of this API key, has the view badge permission, and it was explicitly assigned to the project that I specified. I cannot view any other projects here with this key. So this is kind of a big improvement over what you had previously, right? Where you could only globally enable unauthenticated access. And the plan is to phase this whole feature out, like this unauthenticated badge access. This will be removed entirely in version 4.13. So if you use badges right now, you are highly encouraged to switch over to the authenticated and authorized version of this feature. Yeah, so this is just a temporary situation we have right now to have both ways of accessing it. That's all for this feature. And then another new nicety, I would say, is the welcome message. And that's, again, contribution. Pretty much all of this, what I'm demoing today, is a contribution. And the purpose for this is to have like some custom message or image or like description on the login page. If you are a big enterprise or maybe a like larger-ish organization, maybe you want to give your employees some kind of message along the way before they log in. I don't know. You can do it here now. And this field essentially accepts any HTML. You're free to use whatever you want. It even has a nice preview, and you can embed like images via image tags if you want it. So in this case, let's just say, hello. Hello world, pretty lame. Update this, and if I now go to the login page, it now has hello world here. So again, like if you need this kind of thing, images, custom slogans, whatever, you can now make use of this feature here. Yeah, that's pretty much all the new stuff that came since the last community meeting, sorry. And again, all of these contributions, thanks so much for everyone who contributed for this and who put up with my PR review comments. Yeah, that's all from this. Let me switch back.
There are a couple questions. Do you have time to go through them?
Yeah, sure.
First one is, wouldn't it make sense to generate public badge URLs per project that can be shared instead of requiring to have authenticated access via tokens?
Could also be, but then you have to like manage all these different URLs, right? At the moment, it's you can make use of the portfolio access control feature where you have like, you already manage team access this way. So then you can use one API key for multiple projects. Otherwise, like if you have like lots of projects, you would have to generate lots of tokens. So we went for this approach, but it's not to say we cannot change it. So if you prefer, or if the community prefers dedicated project tokens, I think we can also make that work. But
Great,
yeah,
sorry.
Yep.
No, you can continue.
Yeah, just want to reiterate that the assignment of projects to teams and then making one API key work with multiple projects, that was pretty much the intention. Yep.
Great, thank you. One other question. Fair to assume that for the welcome message, the inline HTML is sanitized?
No. This is raw HTML. Like you have the power over your instance. It's an admin setting. You can embed whatever you want. If someone is able to edit this this setting, I think you have other things to worry about.
And we are always accepting contributions to lock this down as well.
Yeah, sure. We already have like a DOM purifier, I think it's called, which is used for the vulnerability descriptions. And I think in this case, it's intentional that you can embed arbitrary HTML. That's the nature of the feature. Yep.
Oh, I think that's it so far.
Alrighty. Then looking ahead to version 4.13, there is a pending PR for project collections. You may remember, or you may know, that currently you can have parent-child relationships, but if you make a project a parent of multiple children, you would probably expect the parent to aggregate all the metrics of the children, and that is currently not happening. So Ralph from Software is currently working on, or has been working on for a long time, for making project collections where you can then like aggregate all the metrics and even aggregate them under certain conditions. And this is also where the isLatest flag that I talked about earlier comes in, because you should then be able to say, hey, only aggregate the metrics of the latest versions of all of my child projects, so that if you have multiple versions of a project, it doesn't like pollute the metrics of the parent. And also like limiting by tag is also an option, or should be an option by then. So yeah, we are hopeful that this will be coming to version 4.13. Also, something that Ralph and his team are working on is the scheduled summary notification. At the moment, whenever something happens in the system, for example, a new vulnerability is identified or a policy violation is identified, you get a notification for every single event, right? And that could be a lot of noise, which you may not want. So the idea of this proposal is to instead schedule summary notifications. And you can see an example here for an email that just shows you, hey, these vulnerabilities or those many vulnerabilities have been found in these and these projects. So you can avoid the noise of the individual notifications. Then something we did for the Hades project already is we improved how you can discover configuration options. This is an example for the API server. At the moment, the Dependency-Track documentation has like a big snippet of an application properties file, and it doesn't explicitly call out how the corresponding environment variable would be named, for example, or which type is expected, or which values are valid for that option. And we really want to make this better discoverable and more easily understandable. So we already have this for Hades, as I said, and we generate this documentation from the source code. So it's kind of always up to date. And the goal of us is to bring this over to version 4.x, hopefully then the next version. Yep. And during the last meeting, we talked a lot about wanting to improve the vulnerability database of Dependency-Track by building a centralized one, similar to how Trivy and Gripe and like other vulnerability scanners are doing it. We put out a proposal. It was a little bit light on community feedback, I would say. But again, we talked extensively about this in the last community meeting. I don't want to spoil this meeting with this, but please have a look at the last meeting. Again, there's a link at the bottom to learn about what we want to achieve. And this was a call out to the community to step in to help build this, because it's kind of decoupled or nicely decoupled from the core project, and it should be easy to stand up something for people who have no prior knowledge of the dependency-track code base. And there is also a part about this that needs to be implemented in dependency-track itself. The data model for vulnerabilities probably needs to change. And I'm hoping to bring parts of this effort in version 4.13. I'm fully expecting this to be like a multi-release thing to deliver. So I really want to just at least bring in some improvement of this overall effort. Yep, and then I'm going to hand back to Caroline.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for demoing and showing us all of the latest features. There's so much going on lately, so it's great to highlight that, your work and all of the contributors' work. So next, I would like to talk about Hacktoberfest, what that is, how to get involved. Hacktoberfest is an open source contributor challenge hosted by DigitalOcean. It's an organized event across thousands of open source projects to encourage new contributors to contribute both code and non-code contributions. It's in its 11th year, and I would say, as someone who has done the Hacktoberfest challenge, it's a great chance to discover something new, improve your skills, and the overall mentality is to give back to all of the open source tools that we depend on every day. So in terms of what the challenge is, the goal is to submit 4 high-quality pull or merge requests between October 1st and October 31st. And you're free to register on the website anytime during this month. For contributors, you can look for projects with the issue Hacktoberfest as a tag, get assigned and work on issues. And for the maintainers, when a Hacktoberfest feature is implemented, make sure to mark the issue with a Hacktoberfest-accepted tag on it as well, for it to be marked towards that challenge. So for each of the pull requests, you can unlock digital badges, up to 4. Previous years, we got some swag and a t-shirt too, but I think the swag is all virtual this time. And yeah, so you can learn more and register at hacktoberfest.com. They have resources on how to register, how to participate. They have events there, and they have a whole different sorts of things available, such as mentorships, and they even have a Discord available. So I would say for us, we're happy to join the challenge and to have new contributors discover Dependency-Track for the first time. I would say also, if you are a maintainer on a different open source project, it's very easy to join Hacktoberfest. All you have to do is add a specific label to your project, maybe tag some issues with Hacktoberfest, and just keep an eye out for contributors and mark things as spam if you need to. But yeah, so there's over 130,000 projects involved in this. So it's very well established, and it's a great chance for the whole open source community to come together and have fun while discovering something new and improving your skills. So yeah, look forward to your contributions.
Definitely same. Thanks so much, Caroline.
Yep.
Righty, then we are at the questions and answers section. Do we have any questions since last time?
I think there's one from Adam. With the new authentication badges, is the advice to store the API key within Markdown files using the badges?
Yeah, you would have to add the API key to the URL, and then of course, like if you want to embed something, you need it to be part of the README file. Yes.
Yep. If anyone else has a question, feel free to add it to the chat or the Q&A. And if you want to talk to a certain topic, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you as well.
I think Thomas is saying, nice to see some progress on this PR. We currently run a version of Dependency-Track with the previous version of this patch applied to version 4.11. Can you elaborate on which PR you are referring to?
So it's this PR that Caroline was actually linking. So I see that the commits on this PR have changed. So a force push to a different version. So we were using basically the previous version and applied it to the previous released version of Dependency-Track. So we had to do some fixes to make that possible. So I have not looked at the recent changes now, but I will certainly rekindle this effort to look into that stuff and provide some feedback from our side. So basically, this PR was already like going exactly in the direction that we wanted and needed. But yeah, it's nice to see that this is also on the feature list for the next release. So we're certainly very interested in this feature. I mean, something that we also noticed, maybe also other people have noticed a lot. So when you would like to group projects hierarchically, so that's very nice. But something that is totally missing, in my opinion, is that there is no project type that would actually fit that. So you have to choose one that actually doesn't really matter or match, like container or library. So it would be like nice to have a category saying that like it's a group or it's a container. A container really like as a project container, not a Docker container, but a project container. Yeah, that's a minor thing.
Yeah, but that does make sense, yes, because the classifiers at the moment are very oriented
Exactly.
on cyclone-dx, right?
Exactly.
And cyclone-dx does not have this concept of group or container.
Yeah.
But yes, it definitely makes sense, yes. If you don't mind, would you like to comment that on the PR maybe, that we add this?
Yeah, certainly, yeah, I will do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Also, when we're talking about the containers, is it possible to, or how many branches, how many levels are possible, will be possible there? Can you elaborate on that?
I have not tried to push this to the limits, but I think there's technically no limit as to how many parents and children you can have.
Okay, so you could have 5 different levels if you're up for that,
yeah,
or even more. Okay.
You can even see here in the screenshot, right? There's this is a collection of 4 projects, and 2 of them have additional levels indicated by the arrow here. So you could expand them, and they are also collection projects. It seems like, yeah.
Oh, thanks. And I have another question because you demoed the welcome screen. So let's say you're running more than one instance, and because maybe one sandbox, and you'd like to make the users aware of, hey, now you're in a sandbox. Are there any thoughts on to extend that welcome message to the general interface?
I don't think so that there have been feature requests so far for this. If you want this to happen, then please just raise a feature request. I don't have anything against that. What will be coming is that's something that Mark Simons has been asking for years. Is customizable icons. So at least in your tab bar, you should be able to tell like this is the production instance of DT and this is something else. So this might play in the direction, but like a global banner that persists across all views is currently not planned or on the roadmap.
All right, thank you.
Okay, it looks like there's one other question. Has the CV database loading in the EPSS been made async with 4.12?
There was no change on CV on EPSS loading in this version. No.
Okay. I don't see any other questions.
That's a good sign, no?
Yeah. I think everything's running smoothly. Okay, great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap it up this time. So thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any other thoughts and discussions, feel free to talk on Slack or on GitHub. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks so much, all. See you
Yeah,
next time.
thanks. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.